The future won't look like how you would expect. Here are 15 of the most promising architectural techniques we'll see in the future. Number 15. Cube houses. Designed by architect Piet Blom, the cube houses are a series of 18 homes in Rotterdam in the Netherlands. The designs were based on the idea of taking a normal cube-shaped home, tilting them by 45 degrees, and supporting them with hexagonal-shaped structures beneath. The houses are often said to represent a forest within a city, where each one is a tree, and cumulatively, they create a sense of calm inside the bustling metropolis. Each house contains 3 floors, and the interiors make use of the slanted angles to create an unusual effect, unlike anything you'll see elsewhere. The idea of taking what's normal and reinterpreting it is becoming more common as we look to new designs for the future, and these quirky ideas are likely to become a regular feature in cities around the world. Number 14. The Dubai Frame. The Dubai frame is described as being the biggest picture frame in the world, and at 492 feet tall, nothing else comes anywhere close. There's a viewing platform at the top so visitors can look out across the city. But the fundamental idea of glass, steel, and aluminum structure speaks to modern society and will feature a lot in future architecture. It's positioned so if you look through it in one direction, you see the new metropolis, and in the other direction, you'll see the old city, and harnesses the increasing use of social media and prevalence of cameras to give unique photo opportunities for passers-by. It's a novel take on offering the perfect Instagram moment, and one that designers around the world will look to learn from. Number 13. 3D printing. With an increasing population and dwindling resources, companies are looking to streamline future home construction in an effort to make them more cost-efficient, and it's quite likely that many buildings of the future will be 3D printed. Instead of taking months to construct, homes like these can be erected within a matter of days and can be made from a wide range of materials. Special mortar is used to hold them together, and the overall cost of making a house like this is a fraction of what would be needed for a more traditional method. Not only can it be cheaper, but can also produce far less waste and incorporate recycled materials and green energy provisions too. As they become more common, they'll become even cheaper, and we'll one day look back and wonder how home building was possible without 3D printing. Number 12. The Dancing House. This warped building may look like a digitally altered image, but your eyes aren't deceiving you. It's the Dancing House Hotel in the city of Prague in the Czech Republic. The first designs for the unusual structure were put forward in 1992, and it was completed by 1996, and at the time was highly controversial because it bucked the trend of the Baroque Gothic and Art Nouveau architecture that Prague is most famous for, and instead falls under the category of deconstructivism. It's currently one of a kind, but has been so popular ever since it opened that it has proved people love quirky designs, and we can expect to see far more unique designs like this in the future. Number 11. The National Fisheries Development Board. With more and more materials now available for use in construction, architects are able to design unique buildings without the limitations they may have once been restricted by. Companies can use their head offices as advertising boards in their own right, and there's no better example of this increasingly used technique than the headquarters of India's National Fisheries Development Board. Also known as the Fish Building, it's an example of mimetic architecture and uses the form of the fish in useful ways. The left pectoral fin is used as an awning over the staircase, for example, and the 2 eyes are 2 large windows. The design also creates a sense of movement, which is something that's especially visible at night when the whole structure is illuminated with blue wavering spotlights. Number 10. The Lucky Knot Bridge. Bridge designs have always been inventive, but with new materials and architectural techniques, we're entering a new era of radical structures. Leading the way right now is the Lucky Knot Bridge in Changsha, China. This 600-foot-long structure is actually 3 different bridges entwined into one, and connects 8 different street locations on either side of a river. It was inspired by the Mobius strip and Chinese culture of knot tying, and from an aerial view, it's difficult to determine where it actually starts and ends. By offering a pedestrian crossing in 1,000 steps and a unique design, the bridge has become a visitor attraction in its own right, and has inspired other cities around the world to build their own functional monuments that are both works of art and useful structures that help in the day-to-day lives of residents. Number 9. The Giraffe Child Care Center. With stronger materials and architectural understanding comes the ability to tailor-make new structures to be more than just boring concrete buildings. Cities have been long accused of becoming soulless as more uninspired towers are built, but new projects can now help add to the aesthetic of an area. If you're walking through Paris, you might well see a great example of this, the Giraffe Child Care Center. It's a 60-bed childcare facility with a nursery and playground on all 3 levels. But the most standout feature is, of course, the giant yellow giraffe that seems to be standing inside it. The legs of the giraffe actually aid structural support to the building, but much more importantly, it adds color to the area and an element of fun, all while keeping within the ethos of the building itself. With more places like these, streets around the world will be transformed and will become far more vibrant places. Number 8. Casa Mila. There's an increasing trend for buildings to be designed to blend in with the surrounding area, rather than to stand out. And the effect that's possible can be clearly seen with the Casa Mila in Barcelona, Spain. Even though the structure is more than 100 years old, it's generally regarded as being well ahead of its time. It uses techniques that architects are trying to incorporate into plans for the next few decades. It has a curved stone facade that looks as if it could have been carved from a rock face and feels like a natural structure. Using materials like stone can be far more efficient in temperature management for the interior, and this could be vital to future requirements for the reduction in energy use. It's also a more economical and green substance to work with, and is likely to replace the concrete and artificial materials that have become so common. Number 7. Wuxi Wanda Cultural Tourism City Exhibition Center. The Wuxi Wanda Cultural Tourism City Exhibition Center in Wuxi, China, is a place that companies use to present themselves and their products to the Chinese market. It's the largest teapot-shaped structure in the world at 128 feet tall and is unmissable on the city's skyline. Since opening, it's become a focal hub of Wuxi and has drawn investment into the city because it offers such a unique venue. We've become so used to similar-looking structures in cities that we barely notice them. And this is a great example of how using new architectural techniques can draw attention to new buildings. By using materials like aluminum and glass, it draws people in with curiosity and wonder, and will be a tactic employed particularly by tourist and visitor venues to help stand out against the rest in rapidly expanding communities. Before we move on, be sure to subscribe to Top 5s with notifications on. Number 6. Rotating skyscraper. Skyscrapers are usually large, immovable objects that offer a fixed view from inside and out. But what if this doesn't have to be the case? There's a new one that's currently under construction in Dubai, and if it's successful, it could completely change the approach to the design of tall buildings in the future. Known as the Dynamic Tower Hotel, it will be 1,375 feet tall, and each of its 80 floors will be able to rotate independently from one another around a concrete core. Residents will be able to control how much or how little their rooms move, with a design that'll surely spell the end of the discussions on what view you want. Just imagine waking each day with a different vista over the place you're visiting. And that's exactly what a building like this will afford you. Furthermore, wind turbines are positioned in between each floor, and with a large solar array on the roof, this building, including the machinery required to make it rotate, will be completely self-powered. Number 5. The Selfridges Building. Selfridges is known as a luxury apartment store in the UK, and while it only has 4 locations, its building in Birmingham is one of the most unique structures in the world. Keeping to its traditions as a trendy clothing store, the exterior of the building was inspired by a 1960s chainmail pache-raban dress, and the organic shape of the building is meant to be like the silhouette of a woman. It's a perfect example of how a store can use every part of its design to convey its brand to those who walk past. And as high street stores find themselves in an economic climate where they're increasingly struggling to attract customers, projects like this are expected to become more and more common. No longer will we rely simply on what we can see through the windows. but also how we feel about a place when we're much further away. Since moving into the $90 million venue in 2003, the department store has reported sales that have bucked the trend of others in the vicinity, and those responsible for it see it as a resounding success. The use of 15,000 spun aluminum discs on the exterior was, of course, controversial at the time, but the extra publicity they gained from it was crucial in making the project work, so other stores are more than likely to try and turn this to their advantage too. Number 4. Udeo Solar Furnace. With our increasing needs for sources of renewable and green energies, along with our continually increasing demand for electricity, not every power plant has to be an ugly, unwieldy blot on the landscape. The Udeo Solar Furnace in France shows just how stunning some designs can be and will form the blueprint for future facilities that are built, even though it itself doesn't actually produce energy, and is instead a scientific facility that tests the effects of heat on various materials. It's 177 feet high and 157 feet wide and is covered with 9,600 reflecting mirrors. They are used to concentrate the sun's rays into a second set of mirrors, which in turn reflects the beams to a small circular target on top of the central tower. Within a few seconds, a temperature of 6,330 degrees Fahrenheit can be attained, which is the same as generating 3,200 kilowatts of power, all without producing any pollution whatsoever. The furnace is the result of careful planning and meticulous design, and helped develop architectural techniques that will be required for years to come. Some of what was learned here can be incorporated not just for power facilities, but also for individual buildings that are trying to be self-sufficient for energy. If they're being built in a place that has sufficient sunlight throughout the year, they'll be able to harness it for much more than they are currently, and it could transform the power needs of cities across the globe. Number 3. The Vineyard Home. While traditional home designs are built to suit the masses, they aren't fit for purpose for everyone, and in a lot of ways can be counterproductive for the needs of disabled or elderly people. As our lifespans increase, this will become even more of a concern than it is now, but architects are coming up with novel solutions, and ones that don't sacrifice on quality or luxury. Quite often, adapted homes can feel like they're full of institutionalized objects that prevent buildings from feeling as warm and welcoming and can become a psychological burden to those who need to use them. There are places, though, like this home between the vineyards in Northern California, where so much thought has been put into accessibility that you wouldn't even know it when you go in. There are no barriers between the inside and the outside, and everything is on one level. A wheelchair user can go easily between the rooms without having to negotiate thin door frames or ramps. And even though there's only one story, the 5,100 square foot space has been optimized to provide 2 large bedrooms, a living room, and a kitchen. With very little adjustments to current designs, the homes of the future will be suitable for everyone who wants to live in them, and is a major advancement in the right direction. Number 2. Green structures. One of the biggest challenges facing the world of building design at the moment is the question of what material should be used, and how ethical it is to create structures with such potentially large environmental footprints. We're entering a time when we need to be conscious of the damage we're causing to our planet, and the construction industry is right there at the heart of the problem and the solution. In recent years, there have been numerous suggestions to how buildings can be far more environmentally conscious, from their design and construction to their operation once they're complete. And this is one architectural trend that is certain to become increasingly important into the future. The ultimate goal of so-called green structures is for them to be completely self-sufficient. This can be done by techniques such as improving the designs of ventilation systems, using energy-efficient lighting and appliances, installing water-saving devices, and landscaping with local plant species to maintain habitats for wildlife. It's also crucial to use non-toxic materials in construction and use stone and wood that has been responsibly sourced from as close by as possible to reduce the need for long-distance transportation. Recycled materials are also important, and so is reusing old buildings and sites before bulldozing green pastures. With improved ways of collecting solar and wind energy, future architectural techniques will find ways to incorporate these into building designs, so they aren't so overpowering to the aesthetics, but are providing virtually all of the energy requirements that a building has. There are other considerations that designers are only just starting to take into account too, like how large structures affect the airflow through a built-up area, and whether covering structures in the living walls of vegetation can help keep the air clean and provide safe places for insects and other vital animals to live. The test for the future will be to continue building structures, but in a way that causes as little impact as possible, and we're only just starting to see how creative these ideas can be. Number 1. Invisible Tower. When new structures get built on a city skyline, there are often countless complaints about the way they look and how they've ruined what was once a perfect view. While you certainly can't ever please everyone, what if there was a way to make any new building invisible? Then no one could complain ever again. Surprisingly, the first ever invisible tower is currently being built in South Korea near to the international airport of Seoul. Called the Tower Infinity, it will be 1,476 feet tall and have the world's third highest observation deck, and will have countless tourist attractions such as a roller coaster, a water park, and movie theaters. Incredibly though, you might not even know it's there until you're at the entrance, because this tower will also be completely covered in high-tech LEDs. Cameras will also be mounted around it, and they'll project a real-time image onto the LED panels in ultra-high definition, effectively making it completely invisible.